Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Monday, October 19th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Today marked another milestone in the pandemic. The global count of coronavirus cases has surpassed 40 million. Here in San Diego County, 380 new cases and no additional deaths were announced. Governor Gavin Newsom announced a state task force will independently review all FDA-approved vaccines before they are distributed in California. Moderna and Pfizer hope to have a vaccine ready by November or December, but Newsom is tempering those expectations.
We're all longing for a when is this thing over question to be answered. When can I get this vaccine? When can I get my kids back to school? When can I go back to work? When can I reopen my doors of my business? And the sober reality is, and this is the sober reality, the expectation cannot be this calendar year.
The governor says early to mid-2021 is the best estimate for a vaccine. Healthcare workers and first responders would be among the first to get it, along with others in high-risk groups. As COVID-19 infections rise across the U.S., experts say following public health measures is the way out of the crisis. Camila Bernal has the latest.
The predicted fall surge is here, according to some health experts.
If we don't take this seriously now, we are going to find ourselves in a very difficult position in just weeks to maybe a month or so.
Worldwide, more than 40 million people have tested positive for COVID-19.
We have an increasing number of positive people.
And while cases are increasing in Europe, cities in Spain, the UK, and France are resisting centralized efforts to impose tighter regulations.
The current time is about action, is about unity, is about solidarity.
But with cases surging in Wales, the First Minister is implementing a 2-week shutdown.
This firebreak is the shortest we can make it, but that means that it will have to be sharp and deep in order to have the impact we need it to have on the virus.
Though the U.S. is now averaging 55,000 new cases per day, Dr. Anthony Fauci says a nationwide lockdown is not the way forward.
We can get control at the same time without shutting down.
This despite the COVID fatigue.
Universal wearing of masks, keeping a distance, avoiding congregate settings.
Camila Bernal, KPBS News.
The Supreme Court will hear challenges to 2 controversial Trump administration border policies. One lawsuit brought by the Sierra Club challenges the transfer of billions of dollars from the Department of Defense budget to build border walls. That includes 14 miles of new border wall in San Diego County. The other case is challenging the Remain in Mexico program, which has sent over 60,000 asylum seekers back to Mexico to wait for their asylum hearings in the U.S. Those hearings are now on hold.
For people on the ground, I think there's overwhelming uncertainty around when their hearings will resume. But that is just one layer of the chaos that they face in Mexican border cities, where under pandemic circumstances, people largely lack access to basic critical resources like medical care, like housing, consistent access to food and things like that, not only for them, but also in many cases for their small children.
The cases will most likely be heard early next year. The Biden campaign has pledged to stop the use of Remain in Mexico and to stop border wall construction should he win the November election. Today is the deadline to register to vote. If you miss it, you can vote provisionally at the polls. More than 400,000 ballots have already been received by the San Diego County Registrar of Voters office. KPBS reporter Shalina Chetlani shows us what happens once they get there.
Casting your ballot may seem like a simple process, but once it gets to the County Registrar of Voters office, the journey for your ballot is just beginning.
And as you can see here, this is our mail ballot sorting room. We have actually 2 sorters. They run about approximately 44,000 envelopes per hour at top speed, and there's 2 of these devices, so that means potentially 88,000 envelopes per hour.
This gigantic storage room filled with tens of thousands of envelopes is one of the first stages of ballot processing. The signatures on these envelopes get scanned and are either verified or flagged. The approved ballots get a good shake, so they can loosen up before they hit the room next door, where they'll be extracted through machines. Staff here are checking them over to make sure they're all filled out correctly. No circles around bubbles or X's in random places. Now, what happens if a ballot is damaged? Well, it has to go through reconciliation.
And when you're thinking about 1.9 million ballot voters that are out there, say you have even 0.5%, that's quite a bit of damaged ballots. Whenever you have a damaged ballot that won't run through the scanner, what we have to do then is remake the ballot. It takes 2 people to do that, 1 person to call out the votes, the other one that's off of the original ballot, and the other is to mark it on screen.
And that remaking of ballots is all done according to state standards. Eventually, all ballots end up here. Ballot tabulation.
So this is the final step after we've signature verified, we've checked in the ballots, we've double checked all of our work, and now we have extracted the ballot outside of its envelope. It comes over to our tabulation room here, where we've got high-speed scanners.
Vu says most ballots won't be cast on election night.
It definitely is going to be coming through the mail. The majority of all votes cast have been mail balloting.
But he says all the activities seen here will be the same on November 3rd, just expanded and with more staff. Shalina Chatlani, KPBS News.
Turnout for the presidential election is already shattering records. Early voting is underway in several states, including Florida, where people lined up early this morning for the first day. So far, more than 28 million Americans have cast their ballots. That's almost 20% of the total vote in 2016. Child welfare social workers will soon get gun safety training. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer says it will include training on gun violence, restraining orders, and San Diego's law on safe storage of firearms.
The new gun safety initiative was announced by Supervisor Nathan Fletcher, Service Employees International Union, Local 221, and City Attorney Mara Elliott. Elliott has been recognized for using gun violence restraining orders, a life-saving tool created by California's red flag law to prevent predictable acts of gun violence. She says the new initiative with social workers is another step in the right direction for gun safety in San Diego.
These trainings will ensure that child welfare social workers know how gun violence restraining orders can be used to protect children from dangerous gun owners and help them educate parents about San Diego's laws requiring the safe storage of firearms.
Cecil Ashley is a protective services worker who is appreciative of the training as his agency has been affected by gun violence this year.
So I'm thankful for trainings like this that are really proactive in equipping us not only to keep ourselves safe, to keep our families safe, but also giving them the tools that they need to be able to, outside of our presence, keep themselves safe.
California has seen a dramatic increase in gun sales this year. According to a survey from UC Davis researchers, an estimated 110,000 new firearms were sold in the state during 2020 through the month of July. 43% of those sales were to first-time gun owners.
Because of COVID, so many of our children are not in the presence of teachers, school counselors, and doctors as much as they were normally. And so these tools will help empower our social workers who are out on the front lines to know every tool they have to get a gun out of a dangerous situation and try and save lives.
The virtual training on gun safety for social workers will begin next week. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
Tribal casinos in San Diego County began reopening in May with new COVID-19 measures, but it's unclear if the gamble paid off. iNewsSource investigative reporter Jennifer Bowman has more.
Visit a local casino and you'll find temperature checks and anti-crowding signs, but you won't know how well the policies are working. County officials aren't tracking COVID-19 outbreaks on tribal lands, and the casinos aren't publicly disclosing details either, but they do say safety is a priority. They've tightened mask wearing rules and smoking rules, and at one casino, employees are working as safety agents. Here's Eddie Ilko, Sequan Casino safety manager.
They're out there on the casino floor reminding our guests to pull their mask up all the way up over their nose and mouth because we know how COVID spreads and we want to minimize that risk here at the casino as much as we can.
So far, the county has tracked over 300 residents who went to a casino shortly before testing positive, but officials can't make a definitive link. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource investigative reporter Jennifer Bowman.
And for more on this story, you can go to inewssource.org. iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. San Diego Unified is bringing back about 10% of students for in-person learning, but that move won't help the vast majority of kids still trying to learn from home. KPBS reporter Claire Tregeser checks back in with kids in remote kindergarten.
Did your class end?
It's very quiet in the Ramos household as 4 kids sit and work on their laptops. The living room has been completely remade into a classroom. There are word cards on the floor, charts on the walls, and a giant timer to help the kids stay on schedule. It smells like warm muffins, and pretty soon the kids stop to take a snack break.
What's a good word that starts with a J?
Jelly bean.
Oh, yeah.
2 families are in this learning pod. They've paid a private tutor $2,500 a month to guide their kids through online lessons each day, plus come up with extra activities. She moves between the kids to see if they need help.
The first day, the kindergartners, their face was just like, what's going on? Like, actually, one of them was even like on the verge of tears.
There are 2 kindergartners in this learning pod, and Horace says they especially need her help. They've never been in school before and are learning to read, follow a teacher's instructions, even do gym class.
Opposite right elbow, left knee.
All remotely.
Reading workshop, writing workshop. They have kind of a checklist of independent activities they have to do every day.
That's true across the school district, but for families without extra help, it's really difficult to handle.
When we first started the Zoom classes, it was a disaster.
Dania Hernandez's daughter, Jasmine, is in kindergarten in North Park. She can't work from home, so her plan was to have her mother help Jasmine with online school.
You know, there was times where my mom was telling Jasmine to sit down and just pay attention to the teacher, and she was like, no, but the teacher is telling me to stand up.
So then Hernandez brought in her cousin, who takes night classes in college, to help guide Jasmine. It's better, but there's still lots of issues.
She had a couple fits because she was like, I know the answer, but there's too many kids.
Hernandez is worried about her daughter being so stressed out, but also about her falling behind.
I thought about just pulling her out. I'm just like, okay, maybe I just pulled her out. But then at the same time, I'm thinking, no, maybe just a little bit that she's getting, it is helping her.
Across the district, kindergarten enrollment is way down. There ended up being about 2,500 fewer students than expected, and 2/3 of that drop were kindergartners.
In some cases, we think parents are making a conscious decision to not enroll their students. But we think that there are other cases where, parents just might not be clear about the process.
Richard Barrera is vice president of the San Diego Unified School Board. He says the district is trying to find families of kindergarten students to get them signed up.
That's a challenge because if a student is not in our database right now because they've never, been enrolled in our district, we might not actually know who they are.
Getting students enrolled in school may benefit them, but it won't fix the huge inequities online learning is creating. While some parents like Hernandez are thankful if their kindergartners can just get a little learning, that something is better than nothing, others are launching ahead in their kindergarten curriculum.
And I feel like Maya and Kaya are learning to read.
Yeah. Nicole Ramos is one of the moms in the learning pod we visited. She says, all things considered, it's going really well.
The kids every morning wake up and they're excited for school. They're excited to see their friends, and to get to learn next to them and have their breaks together and find those moments to just connect and play.
In fact, even if her kids' school reopened, she's not sure she would want to send them back because she doesn't want to disrupt the routine they've established. Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
The race for City Council in District 9 was thrown into turmoil last month after leading candidate Calvin Barrios suspended his campaign in the face of allegations of financial impropriety. Now, as KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler tells us, the support of organized labor has shifted to his opponent.
For San Diego Community College board member and nonprofit executive director Sean Elo Rivera, this election is all about opportunity.
I am someone who can't walk down the street or meet someone and not want to see them kind of achieve everything that I see in them, or they see themselves even more importantly.
And that's not limited to the opportunity he's been given after his opponent, who had far more money and institutional support than he did and handily led the March primary, was sidelined by scandal. The Democrat says he wants to make sure that opportunities flow to the residents of District 9, which encompasses the disparate neighborhoods of Talmadge, Kensington, City Heights, the University area, and south to Mount Hope and South Crest. This includes the opportunity for residents to stay in their homes and stave off evictions amid waves of job losses and a lack of federal support for the city. As a law school graduate working in City Heights almost a decade ago, Elo Rivera kept seeing people struggling with housing and homelessness because of policy decisions made way above them.
I also saw that in many situations, people who were showing up in the same situations as their neighbors the day before were showing up because policies weren't working to their benefit. And I ultimately decided that that's how I wanted to pursue impact.
And these issues have only gotten worse, he says. That's why he sees the need for the city to start providing legal assistance to residents and business owners trying to navigate often overcomplicated systems.
We should never be in a place where folks are losing their home, where they're not allowed to pursue opportunity through business, or otherwise being jeopardized because they simply don't have access to the information they need.
Elo Rivera explained that the streamlined solutions for homelessness being piloted at the Downtown Convention Center are something the city should build on, and that the city should continue to purchase hotels and motels for immediate low-income housing. The district is currently represented by City Council President Georgette Gomez, who's now running to represent the area in Congress. But with the prospect of its third City Council member in just 5 years, continuity and trust remain huge issues in the community. Elo Rivera says he'll work hard to ensure responsiveness and accountability from local government.
Whether it's people who kind of sit on the left end of the political spectrum or the right, people who live in the richest neighborhoods of District 9 or the poorest, that frustration with feeling like they're not being heard, not being represented, and that the city isn't always working on their behalf is a real one, and more often is being discussed when I talk to community members.
His focus remains on the young people in the district he's been working with, who he says have been left out of the city's plan for any sort of recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic.
I would really like to see the city invest in jobs programs for young people, whether that means a conservation corps, an environmental corps that is helping keeping our neighborhoods clean. Good chances for young people to build their resumes, to gain experience, and at the same time give back to their community. I think that's a win-win for everyone, and would really move San Diego in a forward direction.
Elo Rivera's opponent, Calvin Barrios, is still on the ballot, and if he wins, says he intends to take office. So Elo Rivera has been hitting the pavement over the last few weeks of this chaotic race to prove that he's earned the seat and the trust of a community that's looking for stability. Max Rivlin-Nadler, KPBS News.
A self-described government transparency advocate is challenging current City Attorney Mara Elliott in the November election. KPBS reporter Joe Hong spoke to both candidates vying for the job.
A city attorney has to walk a fine line between giving legal advice to elected officials and holding those officials accountable to taxpayers. As incumbent city attorney Mara Elliott wraps up her first 4-year term as San Diego's first female and Latina city attorney, she said she's the most capable candidate to navigate the city through these unprecedented times.
And I think that steady hand is needed more than ever as we try to get through COVID as a region and become what San Diego was and thrive again.
She said her proudest accomplishments include tightening gun regulations and cracking down on domestic abuse.
We have a nationally recognized gun violence restraining order program that has removed over 600 guns from the street from people who are threatening suicides or domestic violence or mass shootings.
Elliott previously served as a deputy city attorney before taking office. Today, she's juggling SDSU's expansion into Mission Valley as well as the aftermath of the bungled 101 Ash Street deal.
It is one of my top priorities to address what I have at 101 Ash, which is a real estate debacle. It doesn't represent the way I do business. SDSU West does, where I was very engaged with one of the largest, if not largest, land use deals we've ever had in San Diego.
But her challenger describes her as a politically motivated attorney who doesn't have San Diego's best interests in mind.
You just don't know what she's doing unless you read headlines, and there you know that all she's doing is reaching for headlines and trying to advance her career as opposed to advancing the quality of life for San Diegans.
Corey Briggs is a civil attorney who's filed dozens of environmental lawsuits against the city relating to real estate development.
I understand how the city is supposed to follow the rules. I've been one of the main lawyers making sure they follow the rules because the incumbent doesn't do that.
If elected, he said he'll tear down the walls between the public and the city attorney's office by holding monthly public meetings with community representatives.
I want them holding me accountable on a regular basis because the public knows these issues better than any government official will ever know them.
Elliott has described her opponent as chaotic and emotional. She said she trusts voters to choose the more level-headed candidate. Joe Hong, KPBS News.
In 1978, Proposition 13 gave businesses property tax breaks. Now, Proposition 15 aims to change that. Cal Matters reporter Ben Christopher explains what Prop 15 means for commercial real estate taxes and for you.
Remember 1978? California's home prices were soaring. Some homeowners, led by this guy, were mad as hell about their ever-increasing property taxes. So voters passed Prop 13. And Californians have been busy voting on property taxes ever since. Over the last 4 decades, Californians have passed more than 20 ballot measures adding new rules for how homes and other properties are taxed. 2020 is no different, but Prop 15, also known as split roll, is the big one. If it passes, it will be the biggest change to California's tax system in a generation. Let me explain.
Hi, I'm Ben Christopher. I'm a political reporter with Cal Matters, and I'm going to explain Prop 15 in a minute.
Properties used to be taxed based on the current home price. If a house's value doubled, so did the taxes. Then voters put a stop to that. Under Prop 13, properties are taxed based on their original purchase price. The longer you stay in your home, the larger the tax break. That also applies to commercial properties, which leads us to Prop 15. Prop 15 splits homes from commercial properties, putting them on different tax rolls, hence split roll. If it passes, nothing changes for homeowners, but lots of commercial landlords would be stripped of their Prop 13 protections and will probably have to start paying a lot more. Not so for small businesses and farms. They're exempt. Supporters say this is a great way to provide more funding to cash-strapped schools and local governments, and that large corporations will pay the most. Opponents say this would be one of the largest tax increases ever, and they warn that landlords will pass the higher costs on to their tenants, which might be small businesses. So, vote yes if you want commercial properties to be taxed based on today's mostly higher market prices. Vote no if you want to keep things the way they are.
And a reminder to check out our KPBS voter guide. The online resource is customizable to the races on your ballot. You can find the link on our homepage at kpbs.org. And it's starting to feel a bit more like fall. A cool down is expected this week, and there's even a chance of rain this weekend. Mark Mancuso has your forecast.
Our dry weather continues throughout the upcoming week, but by next weekend, there may actually be a couple of showers around as the system moves in from the Pacific. And once that moves in, that'll bring in some significant cooling over the weekend. Next couple of days, cooling is gradual, and the marine layer will continue to deepen, so that means more in the way of nighttime and morning low clouds and areas of fog spreading inland. Now, as we take a look at our weather for tonight, we'll see the clouds rolling in. Oceanside 54, San Diego 65 for a low. Ramona's down to 49, and it'll be around 59 in El Cajon. Mount Laguna 53, Borrego Springs 65. Now for tomorrow, well, it's pretty much the same scenario. We continue to see the cooling coming into the coast, but it's still very warm here in the interior towards the desert regions. But even here, temperatures will start to trend down. Looking at our forecast highs, Oceanside 74, San Diego 75, so it's closer to average. Ramona and El Cajon around 87, still above average here. Borrego Springs 99 and Mount Laguna at 74. On Wednesday, we'll continue to see the cooling edging inland. Well, in the interior, the heat continues to hold, but that heat will retreat here at the end of the week as the cooling continues to spread inland. And as we take a look at the weather here at the coast next couple of days, some morning clouds, some afternoon sunshine, temperatures a little cooler, as you can see, as we head into the weekend, and inland areas near average temperatures, and then we'll drop a little bit below average, and we'll see a cool Saturday. And in the mountains, temperatures will be dipping into the 60s, lower 60s by the weekend. And in the deserts, temperatures here too dropping down a little bit below average, and cooler by the weekend, even here. And for KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
An update to a story we brought you here on KPBS back in 2018. 2 years ago, we reported on the Second Chance Pell Grant Program, and that's at Donovan State Prison, which provides college courses to inmates. Now, at the time, there were 20 men gathering for business classes through Southwestern College, and we are happy to report that all but one of them earned their associate's degrees in May. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.
See you tomorrow.